Hi there, everyone. My name's Amanda Lynn, and I am an intuitive card reader, a medium, a clairsentient, among other things. So, today's topic is going to be warriors of love, and I'll explain much more in depth what I mean by that. But let's just start by saying we're going to talk about what it means to be somebody who is shedding light on the world, somebody who's here to love in radical, radical ways. As with all my videos, I want to start off by saying that what I'm expressing here is my current perception. It's what I believe. And if you resonate with it, that's fantastic. If you don't, feel free to click off the video, and no harm, no foul. So, we're living in a time right now where I think it's pretty clear to most everybody that things need to shift. Where we're going is not always the greatest, and there's a lot of wonderful, beautiful things in the world, but there's also a lot of darkness and shadow and evil. So, how do you, whoever's listening, light worker, starseed, whatever label you want to give yourself, how do we combat this darkness that's in the world? Well, to me, I think the simplest and also most difficult thing we can do is love. Love more, love radically, love with all of ourselves. And I think what I've learned in my life is at every moment of our lives, every decision we're making, it really boils down to two options: fear or love. And I really believe at its core it's that simple. I had an acting professor one time who explained it so well. We were doing improvised scenes, and eventually we would get into arguments with our scene partner. And what my professor told us, and has stuck with me to this day, he said, in every situation, in every argument, you have two options. You can love more or love less. And what he really explained to us is that most of the time, the correct answer, the more interesting answer, the more authentic answer to the human experience is to love more. So, how do we do that? I guess is the big age-old question, right? Because a lot of people do a lot of shitty things in the name of love. And that's not love. So let's be clear on that to begin with. Love isn't words, it's action, and it's how people make us feel. And, at our deep core, when something's in alignment. It's about getting in touch with that more. So, what I'm going to talk about right now is unconditional love versus transactional love. So, I think it should first be said, the term unconditional love gets very confused, and I think a lot of times people use that term as an excuse for allowing others to mistreat them. So I don't mean loving someone at the expense of your own boundaries and your own spirit. And in fact, that's not love anyway. When I talk about unconditional love, I'll say this. So, relationship, human to human relationship, requires some amount of conditions in order to work, right? So, if it's a friendship can't be sustained. That relationship can't be sustained if one person, for example, is always the person who invites the other one out, and that causes them to feel unhappy, and it feels like one person is doing more work than the other. So there are certain conditions or agreements you have in relationship that are important, and that's about having boundaries. But I believe every connection that is that has any depth or value in the human experience needs to be based, the foundation of it needs to be unconditional love. So the foundation of your friendships, your romantic relationships, your familial relationships should always be unconditional. So I love you no matter what. What you then build on top of that foundation are healthy boundaries and conditions, that agreements that both of you can agree on in order to make that relationship healthy. But at its core, love will not be taken away regardless of whether or not that other person upholds the boundaries. Does that make sense? I hope so. So unconditional love versus transactional love. I'll preface this by saying the majority of the relationships we see are transactional. So this is what we're conditioned to do, and these are the patterns us as warriors of love, these are the patterns we're trying to break. So let's start with transactional love. Let's talk about what that looks like. So transactional love can feel like chains. It feels like conditions. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why my video went out. So transactional love, it can feel like chains. It definitely has conditions. We feel like we have to wear masks in order to maintain the relationship. We can feel like the other person is fitting us into a box, or we are fitting them into a box. It's kind of based on this transaction, this idea, if you do this for me, I'll do that. So very conditional. There's a lot of insecurity and fear in transactional type relationships because we attach ourselves unhealthily to the person we're in this transactional relationship with. Another word people use is codependency. So a codependent relationship, let's say it's between a parent and a child. Transactional looks like, okay, I, as your mother, I will give you love and affection if you call me on my birthday. That's transactional. An unconditional version of that would be, I give you love and affection regardless of what you do. I would love it if you called me on my birthday. It's a very subtle difference, but I think it's very profound. So let's talk about unconditional love. Unconditional love feels like that other person fully and completely showing up for you. Words I associate with unconditional love are vulnerability, transparency, authenticity, and freedom. Above all, freedom. So unconditional love is not possession. It is allowing the other person to be who they are in their entirety and loving all of the parts of them. Unconditional love can't be taken away. It's always there, regardless of what that other person does. Now, again, I'm going to caveat that by saying, like I said, foundation of relationship, of healthy relationship, is unconditional love. But you still, in order to be in relationship with that person in the human experience, there has to be certain agreements or boundaries set. We can love someone unconditionally while still maintaining our own values and boundaries. So here's the thing. You have to love and respect yourself unconditionally in order to give that out to other people. And loving yourself means that you aren't going to allow other people to bulldoze over your boundaries either. So you can love someone unconditionally and say, I love you without conditions, but if you do this certain behavior, I'm not going to be able to have you in my life. See, love crosses boundaries. It's limitless. We don't have to allow another person into our physical space in order to love them without conditions. So I think it's important to say that. Real love is loving all of who a person is. Their light, their darkness, everything in between, everything that makes them who they are. And I think we live in a day and age where there's so much transactional relationship because people are afraid to share their darkness. They are afraid because they think that if somebody sees who they really are, they won't accept it or they'll run away. And I can empathize and relate because I've certainly felt that way in my life. But you come to a point where you realize not being seen fully means that the relationships you have in your life, those people who you're hiding from, if you're not being seen fully, then you're not being seen. And I think all of us at our core really want to be seen for all of who we are and found beautiful, all of it. I've found in my time and in my journey that really the most intimate, deep connection you can share with another person happens when you lay all your cards on the table. Every ugly, deep, dark, scary thing you think you have about you. Being really fully honest about it and opening it up and just showing it to that person in this act of bravery, in this act of vulnerability, and having that person see all your stuff and say, I love you anyway. I love you. I love all of it. We can't have true, deep connection if we are keeping our shadow in a closet and acting like it doesn't exist. So we have to learn to love our own shadow and those pieces of us that we find ugly or undesirable or whatever you want to label it. We have to learn to love our own shadow and see our own inherent worthiness to be loved anyway, in order to accept that type of unconditional love from someone else. So here's the thing, you're always worthy of it. You are always worthy of being seen in your entirety, fully, and loved unconditionally as you are. You're always worthy of that. But you won't allow yourself to receive that kind of love from another person if you aren't giving that to yourself. So I want to say that, this is a big part of the warrior's journey that I've been on, that I'm sure a lot of you are on, is we have to look ourselves really clearly in the mirror and see all the light, all the darkness, all the things in between, and say, me, all of what I am am worthy of being loved. And once you can do that for yourself, you can give and receive in a very balanced, healthy way from the other relationships in your life. There is no love without risk and without vulnerability, right? So you can't protect yourself. You can't only show the parts you think are pretty. and have true, deep, loving, unconditional connection. So, I'm going to talk about this one thing that has come up multiple times for me in my journey. So I have a lot of people tell me, because I am a lover, I am a radical lover, and it freaks people out. Because I'm the type of person who, when I care about you, when I love you, I'm going to rip my still beating heart out of my chest, hand it to you, and say, this is all of what I feel and who I am. And you deserve to have this piece of me. That usually causes people to freak out. And they tend to say things like, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt you. But let's unpack that statement. Because, what I just said was there's no love without risk and vulnerability. So if your instinct is to protect that other person who's giving you their heart, if your instinct is to protect them from heartbreak, what you're really doing is saying, I am afraid to allow you to love me fully. If you feel the need to protect somebody else from you because you feel like you're gonna hurt them, I would really ask yourself, are you protecting that person? Are you trying to protect that person? Or are you trying to protect yourself? Because if I show up in front of you and I give you my still beating heart and I say, I'm willing to take the risk that is loving you, I am saying you can crush my heart into a million pieces, and I trust that I'm strong enough to heal from it. You are worth this. If you can't accept that from another person, it's probably because you are afraid to show up in that full of a way for them. And there's no judgment there. We have to be ready for this at our own time. But I really think that it comes back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. It's fear or love are our only options. So when we're afraid to open up and love another person, do we choose to do it anyway? To me, that's what training as a warrior of love is. It's not that you don't get afraid or you are somehow immune to those things. It's that when you feel the fear, you choose to love more. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that, but I want you all to really contemplate this and ask yourself, when you're faced with situations that involve loving other people, do you choose fear or love? Which one are you choosing? And maybe ask yourself, how can you train yourself to choose love more often? Because we're gonna be afraid and run away sometimes. We're going to back away and feel like we're not strong enough to handle it sometimes. That's fine. That's human. But can we train ourselves to really push through the fear, look it in the face it down like the warriors we are, and say, me, I choose to love over and over and over again. I choose to love when I seem like a crazy person. I choose to love when someone's pushing me away. I choose to love when my inner critic is telling me I don't deserve it. I really think it's time that we move further and further away from this transactional way of relating and move more into loving without conditions, because all of us deserve to be seen for all of who we are and loved because of it, because of who we are. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And I'd love to hear what you have to say, your reactions, your opinions. What do you think unconditional love looks like? Who are the people in your life who have shown you what that means? I'd love to hear it. And I'm wishing you all the best, sending you lots of love and light. Let's be as courageous as we can be.